All right, my next big tip on making your battles in D&D engaging, and this is a really big one, is to put aside this idea that combat is this pillar of the game and role playing is this pillar of the game and exploration is this pillar of the game. That's a useful way to think about things when you're organizing things or talking about them. But I want you to think of role playing in particular as this thing that happens throughout the game. In fact, I mean it's a role playing game after all. And so I want you to really focus on bringing role playing into combat. One of the biggest things you can do is encourage your players on their round to talk to the other players. If they see something dangerous that you've just told them about, encourage them to tell the other players relevant what they've seen. Encourage them to communicate. If they have 3 hit points left and they need healing, on their turn, they need to turn to whoever would help them in whatever situation they're in, and they need to ask that player for help. Really encourage your players to do this. Tell them it's really one of the most important things they do on their round is to talk to their fellow players. Let those players know what they've seen, know what they need, know what they're going through. And what I talked about earlier, and I've talked about before, is sort of instituting a situation where, the players don't talk if it's not their turn. Well, this is kind of the preempt to that. Basically, for the other players who it's not their turn, don't speak unless you're spoken to. So if a player at the table on their turn asks you a question or asks you for something, of course, you're allowed to reply in character. And what you really want to do is you want to encourage these quick interactions where the players are having these quick little conversations that are initiated by whatever player its turn it is. Kind of these quick little give and take bits of information, asks for help, little moments where the characters come up with a bit of teamwork, and you kind of let that happen throughout the round, and that really encourages teamwork. It really encourages role playing in battle, and it's really going to make your battles a lot less stagnant. People might be a bit afraid of this because people already talk about the problem of combat maybe dragging on too long. But a big secret I've discovered, I've run a lot of huge epic battles that take up an entire 3 hour session and take up an entire additional 3 hour section. And I have had players that are even RP centric, players that are really into role playing, just enjoy these battles immensely because we do pack so much role playing into them. And yeah, it can make a battle go a little bit longer when you let your players do this and you encourage it, but it's going to make the battle better. In which case, who cares how long it's going? If it's fun, that's the whole point of it, right? Another thing on the role play front, the role playing combat front, is to add some role playing to your bad guys. Give some character to them. One thing you can do that I really enjoy, that the players really pick up on and enjoy, is I have my bad guys in the middle of combat on their turns. I have them say things to each other. I have them say things like, "That's the wizard." Like, shoot him, take down the spell. We've got to get that spell down. I have the bad guys coordinate and yell at each other on their turns. Not always, sometimes I'm just trying to get through my bad guys' turns quickly so I can get back to a player. But where it works, where, I add in these moments where the bad guys, they're trying to strategize in the middle of a fight too. They're yelling things back and forth. Sometimes they yell in a different language, and if the players don't know it, they don't know what they're talking about, and it gets them really interested into paying attention. Another thing you can do to give your bad guys character is you can actually take a few bad guys, a bad guy or two, on the opposing fight, and give them a little bit of character that you lean into whenever it's their turn. For instance, like one thing I like to do is sometimes I like to make one of the bad guys is sort of a coward or maybe even a bit of a backstabber. And so when it comes to that person's round, they don't always do the most optimal thing, except sometimes they waste their round hiding. And sometimes that adds a little bit of interest to the bad guys. Another thing you could do is like sometimes I'll have a group of bad guys that they're evil, but they're very loyal to each other, and they actually have a sort of camaraderie, and they help each other. You could have two bad guys, two orcs, say, in a band of orcs who are just like brothers in battle. And even though they're evil, there's something admirable about the way that as all the other orcs are fleeing, this one orc he's bloodied, he's got 3 hit points left, and then this orc in the back says, "Brother!" Yells out in Orcish, "Brother, we will die with Grumsh at our backs," and charges forward heroically to save his fellow warrior. There's all sorts of way you can add a little bit of character to somebody, to some particular bad guy in any battle, just to make them feel a little more real, a little more three-dimensional. And so if you can add role playing to your combat, a healthy dose of role playing, by having your bad guys, not just taunt the other players. That's cool, but that's a given. But have them talk to each other. Have them do things that are interesting from an RP perspective, and encourage your players to RP on their rounds, to talk to each other, to plan, to say what they've seen, and to coordinate, and really encourage that role playing to come into your games. And what that's going to do for you is that's going to take those players that are really interested in RP, that's kind of their favorite part of the game. That's going to take more of what they love and bring it into combat, and help those more RP heavy players like really enjoy fighting like they never have before. If you come at it from that perspective and try and bring role play back into combat, going to make your fights hugely interesting.